Sunday afternoon in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and some handsome young men in the studio with me today. My name is Marlon Hester, and these brothers are here today to talk about some things very special. Thank you for joining us on Family First. Family First is a program that God raised up to have us speak to our nation about family matters. And in the last several weeks, it's been our privilege to have been able to bring to you a perspective given by young men. And that's one of the things that we want to develop in our repertoire. We're going to be having some young women in due season. They'll come and talk about some of the matters that are close to their heart. But for now, these brothers are pioneering, we believe, some essential ideas and concepts about how to raise up family in Guyana and generally. And so we're going to have some music first, as usual. We're going to hear from Sabrina. And Sabrina has been doing this song for us every Sunday at this time. And this song blesses our heart. In fact, it's amazing because one of the persons in the studio this time is featured in this song. And I'm going to ask you to look to see if you see that person. If you can, you are a genius. And so here is We Give Glory by Sabrina Costello when it was done at the Freedom Presbyterian Church a few moons ago. God bless you as you enjoy the ministry of this song.
Sits upon the throne, and you're gathered with the angels in one accord as they kneel before the Lamb, who is the great I am, who was and who is and is to come. We give glory, honor, we give power to the Lamb. We give glory, we give all the honor, we give power to the Lamb.
Praise God, a beautiful song. We give glory, we give honor, we give power to the Lamb, taken from the book of Revelation and done by the very talented, very beautiful Sabrina Costello. Well, my brother's in the studio with me. To my immediate right is Raphael, and then there's Adrian and Peter. And they're here to talk about what's on the screen, how to choose a wife. So they're teaching me, all right? I'm going to be learning from these fellows. I'm advised by many people these days that, you know, in our time, meaning 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago for some of us, maybe longer than that, was different. Guys would write a letter to the parents and ask for the girl, and so on. There weren't as many social opportunities for interaction like they are now with the internet and social media and, you know, parties and entertainment places and meeting up in the mall and all of that. Basically it was school or a village dance or whatever, or maybe church. But things have changed, and so we're interested in hearing from these young men how to choose a wife. And I'm very, very glad that we're able to bring this topic to you today at a time when marriage is threatened by all kinds of things, including the absence of an understanding of what it really means to have a partner in life. And choosing a wife, we believe, is a critical part of that process. All right, so we're going to begin this conversation, Raphael, with you, and we're going to ask these brothers to tell us a little bit about what they heard about choosing a wife before they settled on the values that they now embrace. Raphael,
Right.
some of the things you heard.
Well, on my side of the fence, it was always about picking somebody who's simple, because you want this thing to be for the rest of your life, yeah?
All right.
And if you want somebody that's too flashy or too out there, as a common term that's thrown around, or somebody pocket got you squeezed. So,
And it wouldn't be the girl's part.
and it clearly can't be the girl's pocket, you know, because the expectation is that the man would provide.
So go simple.
So go simple, basically. Another big characteristic which was put out there for me was that you must always see somebody who understands how long forever is. Yeah?
Whoa, how long
Forever is. Right? Because the vow you're making, you say you want to spend until death. Until death. So it's the forever of your natural life, yeah?
And you learned these even before you settled in on values from kingdom and church and Bible and so forth.
Right. Because I've always understood that marriage is one time. Yeah? So those two things, simple and forever.
Simple and forever. Simply forever.
Simply forever.
Adrian, what's up?
Well, for me, not as deep as Raphael. Someone who could manage a home and someone who could
Food is
take
important
and
to
food
you.
and cook
Food is important to you.
and so on, because 30, 40 years ago, men were the sole providers in homes. So, but in this generation, we see women going to get their masters and their PhDs and their degrees and so on. So they're not as much as at home as 30, 40 years ago. So back then you used to hear she has to know to take care of a house, she has to know to look after children, she has to know to cook, clean and wash, housewife duties. So you grow up thinking that, but now the game has switched. Both of you are out on the road, both of you are studying, both of you are working. So you tend to see the clash. The values that you had, now you're getting married, you can't adapt those values because both of you guys are...
So you have to choose.
Yes, you have to choose.
What are you looking for?
Well, for me, you still gotta know to cook. You know? But there must be some sort of balance. I believe that...
Are you prepared to cook?
Yes, I'm prepared.
Set up.
Yes, prepared to cook, to clean, to balance things in the home, because it's also costly if both of you are studying and then one of you falls short because and misses a degree or a master's because the other partner was not willing to sacrifice or willing to learn to do basic things within the home. And it takes the strain off if the wife comes home and say, well, you can cook today or you could cook because I have an exam tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning. And it's good to know that you can still manage a home while your wife is out doing her thing.
And so these values that you're sharing with us, you learned these values before you settled chapter and verse, Bible and church and all that stuff?
Yes, because when I started working, a lot of the women I was working with were studying. And you would hear the talk in the office, well, my man got know to do this, my man know to do that. And in all fairness, when you sat down really thought of it, they were making a lot of sense. It's easier when two can manage and run the home as opposed to putting all the responsibilities on one person and let the other person go out and provide and so on.
Sounds good, Peter. I know you didn't grow up in the city like this fellow here who is talking about all these deep things about cooking and so forth, but I know you like food.
Right. Well, I'm not that old, and then I'm not that young again, too. Well, I grew up in my home that I grew up, I would have noticed that my mother, she takes care of the home. Even though she worked at the set time, she would be the one to keep the house. And Daddy would play his part too. When he sees she's not doing that well, he would get up and cook on some days. I mostly enjoyed his food.
Don't let
Sorry,
your
mommy.
Totally.
Right? So I grew up in a home like that where the two work together to make things happen. It's easy, as Adrian said, too, when you have that unity in the home, that you can work. And I grew up.
So you're looking for unity.
Right.
You're looking for somebody who is compatible, somebody who could flow with you.
Right. So if I fall short on this day, you're expected to.
And you got that from watching your parents.
I got that from watching my parents.
Wow.
Yes.
That's an interesting thing that you've just raised there, because I'm trying to figure out what happens to our young people who didn't grow with both parents or didn't have surrogates, others who stepped in to show them the way. You know, in a way, we're idealizing how it works because people learn from what they experience. And they're listening to you and thinking, right, but I never saw that.
And the thing is, I didn't want to get to this point exactly, but you grow up hearing that you don't buy pig in bag.
Oops.
Right? So people tend to test out what they want to marry first.
You got to explain that.
People these days choose not to marry first and then look forward to what they...
The consummation, you mean?
Right.
Okay, so they consume first.
They consume first.
And then decide if we're going to marry.
And then decide if... And live together as well. And then decide if I can work with this person or not. And in that case, they end up making a child or two.
Yeah.
And it end up hurting the entire family.
Right. That's something that you've seen.
That's something I would have witnessed.
And you would say, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Mm.
Don't
It's
do
interesting, because in every value that you've put forward, you have protected the female. I find that interesting. That you have chosen to represent that a man, young man, must be considerate of the circumstances of the girl, because you're saying don't do the pig in bag thing.
Right.
Don't
Learn balance.
learn balance. Don't let her have to go to work and then come home and cook and whatever, and you
Yes.
just throw back. And you're saying simple
Right.
and forever. Wow, I salute you fellas, because the truth of the matter is, when we look at what's happening in our society, a lot of young people, young men in particular, don't have a good daddy model in regard to how to choose. And unfortunately, a number of relationships out there have been messed up by bad decisions, bad example. People just walk away, pick up another relationship, get married a third time or whatever.
Right.
So one of the realities of trying to choose a wife now is that you know at the back of your head that you've seen your significant others choose once, twice, thrice. So if it doesn't work the first time, it doesn't work the second time. You know. So there's no sense, like you said, Raphael, of forever. And I find that interesting. Now, against what you said about hearing from outside, I want to ask you to talk about what you've heard inside now. You're in church, I understand. You're Christian men. And you are at the age and stage where you're thinking wife. And you go to the Bible. You go to God's Word. You've listened to others teach on it. What are some of the critical things that you see, you've heard, you've known regarding choosing a wife from the Word of God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. For me, I got it straight. First book, Genesis, and there it speaks to Eve being created from Adam. So there's the rib. He goes into the deep sleep, and then the rib is taken from it. And out of man, you have woman.
All right.
So from the word, I understand that the woman is part of me, right? So coming from what I would have understood just about this whole simple forever thing, is that you could separate that and put it in a little box by itself. You could be simple, and you and your wife could live forever. But it doesn't speak to the actual oneness,
Okay.
the communion between her being a part of you, a part of your rib. So you can just have a simple life, you go through, you're married 30 years, nothing exciting, nothing extraordinary happens. But I find it extraordinary. Adam looked at Eve and said, wow,
Wow.
there's an excitement. So from the word, it shows
She
me
made his liver quiver.
and everything else, right? And from that, I get that getting a wife is not just forever a simple thing. It's excitement. There's a moment where you realize, wow, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
Is it going back to your analogy? When she comes to you, is that your rib coming to make you complete and whole?
Right. I think it's a rib and other organs. So
Yes,
sometimes
yes,
your heart,
yes.
a piece of your brain.
Yes.
but yeah,
Help
man.
me, she brings
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
that.
man. Yeah, man.
Adrian, what struck you from the word, from biblical teachings?
Well, two things. You should choose someone who would help you fulfill your purpose in God. And before you choose that person, you have to know your purpose in God. Sometimes what frustrates a lot of relationships is when the man who is seen as the leader doesn't know where the relationship is going. He has no game plan. He has nothing. We just there. And when
Is
you
it
pick-
the man's responsibility to have that plan?
Yes, it's the man's responsibility to direct and to steer the relationship. So when he engages her, he's saying, "Look, this is my plan for the next 5 years, or this is what we're going to do, or this is where I see myself." So when she sees that plan, she can say, "Okay, I could work with this. I can't work with this." But if she doesn't see no plan and she says, "Okay, let's just go with it," it frustrates the relationship. So you should choose someone who helps you to fulfill your purpose. And you should also choose someone who likewise is in the same flow with you, being a Christian. Because what happens sometimes is that you might pick up someone or start dating someone and your views are different. And that causes a lot of strife sometimes, you know. You want to decide to do something, but she is not in tandem with you, or she wants to do something and then you're not in tandem with her. That kind of places a lot of frustration on the
I have a
relationship as
viewer
well.
who is telling me that I must ask you, what do you mean by the girl coming to help him fulfill his purpose? Is it possible that she comes into his life and realizes that he is so committed to what he wants to do that she's a tag along, and that what she is called to do is not of any consequence in the relationship? What happens then?
All right, good question, viewer. Thank you for asking it. It's not like, okay, I'm the man and what I say goes. No, it's like, let's say a builder and a sculptor. As he sculpts her, she's sculpting him. So they're both being fulfilled. The purpose of Christ for both of them is being fulfilled.
mutual.
Yes, by each other. So it's not like, okay, she gets to do everything she wants and his ideas, his dreams, his passions are on the back burner. But they both come together, okay, Christ wants me to do this, Christ wants me to do that, boom. So we can help each other to do it in Christ.
So the man, the program is choosing a wife. The man has to be willing to accommodate what God wants the girl to accomplish with her life. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, as well at the same time accomplishing what God wants him to accomplish with
Yeah,
his
that's
life.
established. See, what I don't want to lose here is that the man has a responsibility to cultivate the woman
Yes.
and to make her grow into this beautiful thing, beautiful person, as wife, but also as minister, purpose, will of God, for the world to see the glory of God through her. Because very often in this generation, again, a lot of men want a wife who could make them look good, and she is somewhere in the cupboard of his purposes and his plans. She doesn't come out ever. She just serves. And that's not God's model. That's not the God's model. The woman also has an important function. And it's not just bearing, rearing, and caring children, right? It's deep stuff. She has a purpose. And every brother needs to know that when you take a girl, you're also partnering with God for her purpose. So in Ephesians 5, husband, love your wife as Christ. Present her without spot or wrinkle or any such thing. She has to be completed for God's glory. And it's the brother's responsibility to so work on this girl that she is, wow, both to himself, because that's the first presentation, presents her to himself, and then he presents her to God. All right? Peter.
Yeah.
What from the
deep stuff?
Yeah.
I'm listening. My idea was that the man needs to provide leadership, first of all, and he needs to, as Adrian said, he needs to have a purpose coming into the relationship. Let the girl know what his purpose is, so that she can help to work with him to fulfill this kind of purpose. Because some men come with nothing. All they have is their job, and they try to work and maintain. But you must be working towards something significant that you want at the end of the day, that you said, me and my wife or my family accomplished this. So the woman look for that kind of leadership where we are heading. We must be going somewhere for me to help you, because I've heard that for me to fulfill my purpose, I must have someone carrying the weight that is stronger or as strong as me to carry the weight with me. So she must be somehow equipped to help me fulfill what I need to. A man must also know good home management as well.
home management, a man?
Right.
A man? Come, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
I'm looking at it in Genesis. Before Adam, God presented his wife to him. He had to know how to maintain his home, his garden, that God gave him to take care of. So he knew home management even before the wife came.
Self-management, home management.
Home management, self-management. So
that's powerful, man.
right there.
Because in this generation, almost from the cradle, somebody's managing a lot of things for our children. You think about it. They go to nursery school, they go to kindergarten, and somebody packs a kit. All they have to do is get a bath, and somebody has the clothes and put them on, and so on and so forth. And they're into school because they have to get this education. And they go to primary, and it's the same routine. Somebody's helping you with everything.
Right.
You're writing National Grade 6. You don't do any homework, or housework, sorry, because you have to do your homework. Everything is, you're living just for this thing.
Right.
Then you go into secondary school and you have this very important CSEC thing coming up, because if you do well, your name is going to be in the newspapers, and you make your parents proud. There's this pressure of expectation. And when you become a young adult, you're 20, 21, and all you can do is books and depend on people to do the other things.
Yeah. And I know the same point you made there. I noticed that it happens with the young ladies, right? They do all these kind of housework, and then they end up going to study. But for the men, my area that I grew up in, the men, this boy have his CXC or his common entrance to study for, so send him, let him do this, because our society has put it that he can't multitask as the woman would multitask. So that's the environment that most young men would grow up in, and you witness a young lady as she grows up, she advances further than him, or decides to take her education further than him, because he grew up in a society that tells him that he cannot multitask as the woman can.
And that's the very significant departure from what happened a generation ago. Young men will tell you they were up early, they had to get water, the village standpipe, they had to take out the cows, they had to do house chores, and all of that before they went to school in the morning. And they came back in the afternoon, and they had to cut grass or whatever they had to do, somehow sure. And on the weekend, there was something to do. And some of them had a little job thing. They had to go to somewhere to get whatever. So that generation of men did a number of things. But the reason I'm going there is because when you get married, if you're dependent as a young man on your spouse, you couldn't do things for yourself. There's no self-management. There's no home management, all right, and so forth. You are a liability. You are a liability to the relationship, which brings us to the next question. Thank you for staying with us. We are, of course, Family First on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. I have in the studio with me three very sharp young men. To my immediate right is Raphael, and next to him is Adrian, the tall one, and looking like a distinguished professor to my extreme right, that is my brother Peter. And we're talking how to choose a wife. I'm going to ask them a question I'm sure that you'll be interested in hearing the answer for. The question is, when is a man ready to choose a wife?
Yes, Peter. Not just kidding with him there. You lose a bit of hair there.
Yes.
I think you're ready to choose a wife when you have taken the decision that someone is going to take everything that you have in your generation and everything they have in their generation and carry that forward to your generation. I think when you have settled on that decision, that marriage is taking what I have and taking what you have, and we've decided that it's okay.
But look, man, my viewers are watching and they're listening to you. They're thinking, he's deep, man.
Yeah, man, because what we need to understand is that anyway, we're all humans, eh? So I am a guy. I struggle with anger, yeah? I'm looking for Jane, and Jane has a problem with spending. You know, she likes to buy nice shoes, she likes to buy nice clothes, right? But at the end of it all, it comes back to the fact that she has that value. Maybe she was coming out of lack. Maybe she never had an environment where she got to wear brand new clothes all the time. She was a second child, now started to take from the older one. And these things will necessarily and must go forward in your marriage, yeah? So you as a man know you're ready when you say, you know what, Jane, I understand all of those things. And we're going to fix them together. And then when we do it, those values are going to go forward to each other.
Wow, so I'm paraphrasing, I'm summarizing. You're saying that a man is ready when he's willing, when he recognizes first that taking someone includes being ready and willing to fetch their load with his load and not use her shortcomings or inadequacies or issues as a point of departure in the relationship.
Right.
That's serious stuff. You know, a woman said to me during this last week, she said, when I'm getting married, I'm writing my own vows, not for better, for worse. And she said that. She said, I'm not writing the better for worse thing. The worst part, I ain't in it. If it's not for better, I'm not in it. Interesting. What's your take? When is a guy ready?
All right. The guy is ready to me when he reaches that state of maturity. You would always hear the saying, marriage is not for little boys, it's not for little girls. My friends could agree with me, you know, in high school, when things weren't going too well with you and your high school girlfriend, let's take a break, you know, let's see other people, you know, this isn't working out. That's not marriage. You can't wake up tomorrow and tell your wife, you know, let's take a 2 weeks and
You can't do that?
Well, you ought not to, because a lot of people like the idea of marriage, but not the sacrifice, because the maturity isn't there. What happens when you get married and then a month or a year after your spouse gets into a serious accident? What do you do there? What happens when you get married and some great emergency happens and it it replenishes all your savings.
What happens when you get married and after the first baby, your wife's body changes?
Exactly. She's not going to look the way she is 26 at 62. So you're going to turn and say, well, you know, I didn't get married for this. You're supposed to keep yourself up and all those things. And it's not attack on her. It's like a revelation of his maturity.
Or lack of maturity.
Or lack of maturity, rather, thank you. So when he's mature enough to understand that marriage is not like a game you just get into, you have 3 lives and after you die you press restart and go again. It's not like that. It's something that you have to be willingly, sacrificially committed to.
Let me ask you a question. Where did you learn that stuff from? You're not married, but
Well, thank you for asking that question. I learned these from looking at marriages within the body of Christ. Some people might not share to the extent of some of the things they went through, but I know of a couple who got married and his wife was injured, and he still went through with it. And when she shared that story, she said he came to the hospital, he did what he had to do as a man. A boy would have said, that's not for me.
She got married when? She got injured when?
Approximately 2 weeks before her accident. And she
Before the wedding?
Before the wedding, yes.
Whoa! And she was in the hospital?
And she was in the hospital.
And they're getting married?
And they're getting married.
And he married her?
And he married her, and they're still married. Yes.
That's a brother in Guyana?
That's a brother in Guyana. I know him in person.
Oh, you know him? Whoa.
And one of the things she kept saying is that his maturity, he did not cry, he did not send me home to my mother and say, oh, let your mother and father take care of you. When you get back yourself, then we can do a thing. He man up. And a lot of men get married, but that they don't have that state of maturity to handle certain things. So sometimes you might not want to get into it, and you might not want to, don't think about those bad things, but you have to face reality. And until that, then you're not ready.
Peter, when is a guy ready?
Yeah, when he's 18. Just playing. Yeah. For me, a big thing in this, a guy must first be approved by his parents because he's living with them all his life. And he first must give approval to the young lady or whoever, to the young lady that he's getting married to for him to spend the rest of their life with them.
The parents must approve the guy.
Right.
That is deep, man. The parents must say,
Right.
our son is ready.
Our son is responsible enough
To take
care
else.
of
But that doesn't happen these days. When people reach 21, 22, 23, 26, the older they are, the more independent of parental and adult advice
Yes.
they tend to be, and then they just walk into the thing and make a choice all by themselves.
Right.
You were saying that it's important that the man checks with mom and dad
To see
if he's ready.
Mommy are good in this, daddy, what do you think? I'm ready to take care of this. I'm ready to handle this on my own. But most young men, as you said, separate themselves from parental guidance and counseling and just go ahead, and you have a high rate of, I think, separation in marriages there when young men decide to branch off on their own and do things on their own. Because I've learned that marriage is not just you and your wife alone. You have this, when you're getting married, you have everybody celebrating with you.
Yes.
So you're accountable to people when you're getting married. So it's just not the two of y'all alone. Because you
Nice.
want to invite people at your wedding.
Nice, yeah. What kind of wedding is that if when you're young you don't have people know this? What kind of wedding is that? We got to fix that. Family first, Raphael, Adrian, and Peter, how to choose a wife. We're going to have a music break, and when we come back, we're going to be asking them, when is a girl ready? What are they looking for? What does a young man look for when he is about to choose a wife? And notice we haven't said a girlfriend, we haven't said a boobs, we haven't said a freshie or fleshy.
Fleshy.
We have said a wife. All right, this is marriage. This is two people come together in a union that is supposed to be forever, Raphael. Forever. All right. So when we come back, these fellas are going to tell us, they will tell us when a girl is ready. They are the people that know these matters this afternoon. and we're all learning from them. So please enjoy this very special local gospel music, this music video, and let's celebrate the glory of our God in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. God bless you. Enjoy this.
Yes, 'cause it's so yes, free to see myself the way you do, to see within myself your light shining through. But with darkness all around me, so hard to do. But teach me, I'm free to see myself the way you do. So much you did for me. You died to set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. So much you did for me. You have set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. Guide my feet, Lord Jesus. Show me your way to follow the right path that leads to eternal days. Help me not to faint, not to turn from your face. And Father, give me the strength to love each day I live. So much you did for me. You died to set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. So much you did for me. You have set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. I need to be like you, Jesus, in everything I do. To be your image, total reflection of you. Though my world may be shaken, I hold you firm foundation. So make me all I need to be, more like thee. So much you did for me. You died to set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. So much you did for me. You have set me free. In my heart I see the love you shared abundantly. So free, so free. La 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 la
Beautiful song, So Free, Trinacia Esseboom, Guyanese to the bone, good gospel music. And we are in the studio of Safe TV here in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. We're in Georgetown, and we're bringing to you today this very important program, How to Choose a Wife. And as you will notice, we have three young men. They're telling us how to do that. Before we went to the music break, we're talking about how to, when a man is asking the question they were answering, when is a man ready to choose a wife? Now, we're going to do it the other way. When is a girl ready to be chosen as a wife? Fellas, I want to start with you, Peter. I think you have some wisdom on this matter that our viewers would like to hear. When is a girl ready to be chosen?
Right.
What are we looking for?
It works both ways. I mentioned earlier that the parents must be able to approve for both the male and also for the female. I think she is ready when you sense that sort of responsibility and care, because a woman is, for me, is mostly about caring and nurturing. And you look as you grow up among the person, it's good also to choose a wife, in my opinion, that you grew up among, that you're familiar with, so that you know these things about the person, and you can able to detect what you can or cannot work with. So in choosing a wife, she must be able to, she must be nurturing, caring, responsible. For me, she must know, well, this is my line of criteria. She must know good money management. No, she must
Oh,
be
you
able
give her
to,
the money, she'll manage it. You know, just get
both mine and hers, right? Because she'll be getting, she'll be the financial manager in the house for me. She'll be looking after the money. And as I said, caring, and she must be respectful to others, because respect is big for me. As the man leads his house,
Yeah.
so all the blame and responsibility will go to him if
Respect.
right.
You
If,
know, God has set it up that men need respect.
right,
And they need respect coming from their spouse.
right,
And I don't think it's a good point you're raising. I don't think a lot of young, eligible women understand the importance of being respectful. We're in a culture where dissing is normal behavior when two people fall out, when groups fall out. We see it in the public domain, dissing. If there's a fracture, if there's a broken relationship, things fall apart between parties, we let the other have it.
right,
But in marriage, I mean, a girl coming in, like you're saying, she must be able to still honor that man.
right. And one last point I want to make also, she must be able to know how to spend time with herself. In prayer, she must be a prayerful woman, so that she can hear from God about what's going on in her life or in her family's life. So she must be in constant prayer. A woman must be a prayerful woman. And she must know how to enjoy her own company as well. Because if she can't enjoy her company, she can't expect.
You have a serious checklist there, brother. It's good stuff. It's good
Yes.
stuff. Adrian, you're straightening at the leash. What's going on?
Well, stemming from what I said earlier, the man and his purpose, I believe a young woman is ready when she can tell herself, okay, I think I'm now able to help whoever God is bringing into my life for them to fulfill their purpose. What do I mean? Peter said she must know how to enjoy time with herself. Let's say a young man is becoming a minister of the gospel, and we know the gospel requires a lot of travel. And if he's constantly out and she hasn't learned that I must spend time with myself, and she's always calling his phone, checking in, clean to him, instead of understanding, okay, he's doing the work of the Lord, he's doing what God has called him to. I need to, at home now, do something else that could complement his ministry. Let me check and see, okay, let me help with these kids, let me do something at home, let me do something for myself or for my ministry. So when she reaches to that point whereby, okay, when I get married, it's not myself anymore, because sometimes the mistake a lot of young women make is to marry because they think it's this big love affair. I'm going to be, he's going to come down with a knight in shining armor, and it's going to look all splendid.
That thing is very heavy.
Shining armor, yes, it's very heavy.
Very, very.
So when she doesn't get that, it's a, this is marriage, this is what I signed up for. But biblically, it's her helping or the spouse helping each other to fulfill, as I said earlier, their purpose in Christ. So once she has that understanding, okay, I'm getting this thing not to satisfy myself, but to satisfy or please the will of God for our lives, then I think she's ready.
So coming out of what you just said, I want to ask a question. Is it possible that a number of our young women these days, because of how society esteems and traditionally has esteemed marriage, is it possible that a number of these girls are in love with the idea of being in love and married?
I would say yes, because what society paints is that marriage is a problem-solving something. When you get married, you get to go home with your husband, and you get to do this, and you get to do
And
all
does
of
the
that.
society give a kind of higher status to a married girl than to a single girl?
They do.
Yes, because they ask you, what happened to you, girl? You didn't see nobody, or so on. But if a man isn't married and he keeps living loosely, you know, well, whenever you get married, just know.
The point I was making is that sometimes that unfair pressure and an imperfect presentation of what's right, that marriage is better than single and all that stuff, makes a lot of girls not pretend, but they long for what comes with the status, what comes with the ring, what comes with being married, and don't work hard enough on getting themselves ready for the thing. You know, it's like some people like to get the qualification, but they don't care for the education.
So when they get into the marriage and the man says, well, you know, when we were courting, I was telling you that these are my plans and this is what I want to do, this is what God has laid upon my heart, she has a hard time adjusting, and it could eventually hinder his ministry because, or whatever he does, doesn't have to be in the job, it doesn't have to be the pastor or so on, because she is not willing to help, she's not willing to sacrifice or give her full 100 because she was married, because she had this idea or this perception in her mind, because when I get married it's going to be all well and butterflies and then it doesn't work out.
Raphael.
Right. I feel like by the time they got to me, they took all the good answers. But I'll work with what was left.
Yeah.
And I hear Peter talking about, you know, the prayerful wife, you know.
Yeah.
I really hear Adrian talking about how wife supporting ministry, and even your statements on the expectations of of married life or married status. And I think to answer the question of how do you know when a girl is ready, for me, it's when the decision itself, the decision to get married, surpasses both physical and it surpasses emotional. Because we always show the wrong, like, you know, women are more emotional than men. They have feelings, they care and compassion that Peter was talking about. But we don't ever get back to the fact that decisions made purely off of emotions
Okay.
would not yield the best benefits for us, right?
Or physical.
Or physical,
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Tall, dark, and handsome. And even for men, you know, the manifestations of the physical. So, like, you're roti wrong, you're ready to settle down.
Oh,
These
right,
days-
All right, copyrighted.
right? So even those subtle things which can filter into how we think, how we perceive, our biases. When the decision passes that, then you know you're not ready to get married. I think another good question girls have to ask themselves when they're to get married is, if I don't get married tomorrow, right, would I still stay with this person? Because then what it shows me is that there is a sense of long suffering. Yeah? If a person is marrying you today, and you feel that way about them today, if you didn't marry them tomorrow, would you still want to be with them today?
I see what you mean. Or
Yeah.
move on to the next
Or
option.
move on to the next option. Because if the answer to that question is, hey, maybe this is not the one, I should try running on another wicket or another crease, right?
Yeah.
Then right away, you know, it's not
She's
not
not
what you're
ready.
looking for, right?
She's not ready.
Right?
Wow.
So the emotional decision leads to the wedding. But I say that that whole spiritual decision, the one that Peter, Adrian, and both yourself would have combined and brought to us like as a whole meal, right, is the purest criteria for girls.
Beautiful stuff. This is good stuff. You guys are doing very well. I am learning so much from you. I'm taking mental notes here. And thank you. You know, again, my time when I had to choose, very different from now. And the values remain the same, essentially, core values, but the dynamics, the cultural dynamics are very different. Very, very different. So we're coming down to the last segment of our program. And I thought I'd ask you about some of the dangers in choosing, mistakes that people make that affect the choice, not the marriage yet, but the choice. The guy has these things going on and he brings them to making the choice, and because he brings those things into making the choice, he makes a bad choice, or he projects something into the relationship that messes with it. All right? the reason I'm asking this question is because I think people assume that if you have all these other things going, you're going to be okay. But the danger spots, the red light. If for example, I've heard you say in the discussion, the girl must be willing to share, and not just, this is not me, share. So what do we say to a brother who, for example, is committed to, I'm the man. There's a very patriarchal society still. I'm the man. What I say goes, and if you don't like it, well, you make up your mind. What? Is that how it's done? What are some of the things that we must avoid? What are some of the factors, the characteristics, the habits, the ways, the views that could mess with choosing correctly?
Well, let me go. Okay.
Right.
The I am the man thing. Both young women should look out for signs of selfishness, signs of dominance. There's a difference between leading and dominating.
That's 6 runs right there.
Good. You must look at how he manages money. Right? If he always says, well, girl, I just get paid, like this money is never doing. I've learned recently, it's not that the money isn't doing, you're living above your means. And these things we tend to look past, but ask questions like, how is your finances? How do you handle money? And see how he treats other people as well. I think Peter brought it out. If he has a hard time relating his ideas, or when he doesn't get his way, he picks up his bat and ball, goes home. All of those are red flags. Catch a tantrum, he goes home, and he talking to he messenger because he vex. He didn't get his way.
Vex for 2 days.
2-3 days, that's a sign, as I said earlier, of immaturity. For young men, see her relationship with her father and so on, because the father's responsibility to cultivate the young woman. And see likewise, see how she spends money and her personality traits. Some women like to believe that no man can run me, no man has to run me, chat and all those kind of things. Those are big red flags when getting into a marriage, because when you present an idea and she in there, so that means you have a hard time getting anywhere.
Wow. Man.
What's big for me is that a young man needs to know to be accountable to somebody, not necessarily his father or his parents, as I said before, but somebody that's close to him, right? Because he mightn't share everything with his parents that he would share with a friend or a mentor. So
But be accountable.
But be accountable. A young man must have a man in his life, I've learned, so that that person can help to correct or witness him from the outside, see how he's going, and if he's ready in all aspect of life to in that case, in that sense, maturity, in a mature sense.
Yes.
To see if he's ready for marriage, he's ready for a new stage, a new season in his life.
I had once somebody called me, a young adult, to say that there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? Well, it's talking to this guy, and when she checked his track record, what she found was that he never made himself accountable to anybody. Neither was he public about his conversations with girls that he was interested in. He always kept the relationship or the gap under wraps, so that if something happened between the two of them, the rest of the world wouldn't know. So he managed that deliberately, because what it did for him was it put him in complete control to get what he wanted. Right? And when the girls, would come out of the woodwork and say, but you don't know what he did or what he said or what happened between us. No, not him. He never. No. And people couldn't accept that this guy he had some issues, because he found a way, by not being accountable, to control everything.
What's going on?
Everything. All right?
Yeah.
What are we looking for?
First one, a big red flag for me, I think, is the response of the partner, the individual, towards their past relationships. If you find that in your new relationship or in this person you're looking for, the decision is primed off of what the last person you were with was or was not, then I think that's a very dangerous ground to be playing in. Yeah, that's baggage. And I also think that that's residue, because the expectation also is that a man brings a supply into the marriage so that the
Nice.
woman gets
That
from
sounds
him.
familiar.
Yeah, and if you're pouring from a glass which has residue inside, that means what you're pouring, what you're supplying will be contaminated. It's going to be
Whoa.
impure. So you don't want to be supplying someone
Purify your
with something.
stuff before you go to another
Yeah, man.
relationship.
Man. Because otherwise, you guys are going to be taking and
These guys
hurting
are young
people.
professors right here. You're hearing these fellas? If a relationship didn't work out and you left with pain, get yourself healed and become whole before you volunteer your life to somebody else. Otherwise,
glass.
you're going to pass on your bitter milk.
Right, wash your glass.
Wash your glass. Nice. Wash your glass. This is deep stuff. Listen, we just have a couple of minutes left and we're wrapping up today. We've been talking about how to choose a wife. Raphael, Adrian in the middle, and Peter to the end at my right here. And they're going to give us their last words, their counsel for you as we go out in program time. I believe that we've had a very special, very good program so far. And I want to thank those of you who've called the studio to tell us and give us some feedback. We appreciate what you've done. And I would like to hear what they have to say to you. These final thoughts coming from these three young men. Who will go first? You going, Adrian?
Before you get into a relationship, I'd just like to say, get your leaders involved.
Nice.
When we check the scripture real quick, Samson's parents said, where are you going with this Delilah girl? You know, we see bad stuff with her. And Samson said, man, I ain't that, so, you know.
Get her for me.
Get her for me still. Listen to the wisdom and the knowledge that comes from your leaders. It could be your parents, your spiritual leaders, anyone, because they have great insight to give you.
Nice.
Nice. My big thing throughout the program was to be accountable to a leader, whether your parents or within your church domain. Be accountable, have a mentor in your life to measure the stages of maturity that you're going through, to see whether you're ready to enter into the next season of your life or whether you should be put on hold. So have a mentor and someone that give you leadership into your life.
Nice.
Right. Last thought, I think you should really just fix yourself in all ways.
Fix yourself?
Fix yourself in all ways,
Beautiful.
man. Manage your expectations and even garner more knowledge from persons who would have walked before you. Because even as you get a wife, the word says deal with your wife with understanding. And I think the understanding comes from being around those who exhibit those traits.
Beautiful. Peter said you must deal with your wife according to knowledge, which means that there is a reservoir, there is a body of information about how women are,
Right.
but there's also the specific of how the girl that you're seeking to pursue is. And you have to do both of those. Very good. Work on yourself, prepare yourself, and get to know girl. Well, it's been a beautiful, beautiful program this special Sunday afternoon in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. We have been spending good time together on Family First. My guests, Raphael and Adrian and Peter, and they have done a tremendous job of articulating on this very powerful topic, how to choose a wife. The thing is, they're young men, and they've given us a perspective that we don't usually get. We tend to get a perspective on choosing from older people. You know, those of us who've been around for a while would be the ones to advise and what to do and what not to do. But they were able to speak to our culture, speak to our season, speak to the now. And we really, really value that. Next week, it is our desire to look at how to choose a husband. We hope to have some brave sisters come into the studio to talk about this. But until then, until we meet again next Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock, and Family First, Marlon Hestick wishing you the very best this evening. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Still I'm here. And I remember when the storms of life blew in. They took everything my enemies were laughing for. Still I'm here. Still I'm because of your grace I am here. Yeah. Lord, tell me how can I repay you for this peace inside my soul? I came around.
on because you're in control. I'm never forsaken, never forsaken, never forsaken. So I gotta sing a song to you, oh Jehovah. My destiny's in you, and if you ever leave me, Jesus, what would I do? I don't even have a clue. Oh Jehovah, my destiny's in you. Before I was born, you knew every part of me. I'm so glad that I am your son. Hey, record deals landing on my hand. They wanna take me to the world, give me a million fans, but still I'm here. Only God knows why I'm still here. They tell me sing about anything except your gospel songs, and I let that deal go, and they could not understand, but still I'm here. Lord, you have your reasons why I'm still here. Oh, cause when I see kingdom fall and water rise, I got peace inside my soul. If you made a way before, you can do it again. With your power, this I know.